it comes to the future of work, I think we're at the beginning of figuring out where we are.
I feel like we've just opened our eyes and we're first looking around and seeing the possibilities.
I don't believe we're going to go back to the way we were working before. I just don't foresee it.
As a company, they need to make sure that they have some sort of social events and some ways for employees to bond with each other.
Greetings and welcome to the second in the series of 5 IMCCA podcasts to wrap up 2023. I'm David Danto, representing the IMCCA today, and I'm with my fellow IMCCA board member, Rich Sasson.
This week's subject is hybrid working. Is hybrid the definite future of work, or are there still firms and individuals that believe we're either going all to be in that traditional office or all working from home? Let's hear what IMCCA member firms and industry analysts have to say about it.
I can make some soft predictions. It's not going to go back to the way it was. That doesn't make sense. And by the way, if you're getting sick of the term hybrid, I'm okay with flex. I think some people are toying around with saying flex just because we're getting sick of saying hybrid, but I'm okay with hybrid. It's accurate.
If I were to answer the question around the future of work and what it means for the workforce, I don't think it's been defined well yet. I think that it's too much defined around where people work and not as much defined around how people work. And that, I think, should be really the thing that we're developing the future of work around.
There's another kind of chasm that you mentioned, which you said emotional chasm. And that, I think, still exists, especially if it's a sort of a newer employee. What we've discovered is that, especially with some of our younger ones, when they are working from home, they have a little hesitation to connect with somebody else, to ask a question, or to just message them. So I think that you have to sort of bridge that emotional chasm as well, be able to have a trust where they're building relationships with people and building connections with people in such a way that they could then message them at any time in the day and not feel like they're interrupting.
When you start looking at some of these trends and what's going to happen and the impacts that they've had, you really have to break it down into a multi-lens approach, because it's not enough to just look at an industry or one type of worker or one type of environment. Really, you have to look at it across the whole scope of that and try to pick up, where are we going to be 5 years from now? How are we going to be working then? And how is this technology going to help implement that?
The promise is that we are able to work with individuals globally who work like us and connect with us. When we started in this, again, coming off the farms and going into factories and offices and stuff like that, we were constrained by our geography. And if we didn't get along with certain people in our community, well, then too bad. Here, you have 8.5 billion people, and there is a segment of that population that works one way, and there's a segment of that population that learns this way or another way. And the promise of work from anywhere is that you can find your tribe regardless of where they are geographically in the world. And I think that is a beautiful thing, but it's also an incredible promise and will pay dividends to all of us in the future.
Again, because you want that time back, right? You want to be able to balance work, balance your personal life, or your professional life versus your personal life in a way that's meaningful for you. And you want to be able to do things that are impactful, not only for society, but to you, or meaningful to you as well. So I think there'll be, as technology kind of moves at the pace that it's moving very rapidly now, you'll see those capabilities come through.
COVID obviously changed everything. And, there was a big pivot, everybody at home. And now we're kind of at the halfway point with, a lot of companies being hybrid. I don't think we're ever going back to everyone being full-time in the office again. So I think hybrid work is here to stay, but it has to be improved. There's still a lot of issues that companies are dealing with. So we're sort of at the test and error kind of point where companies are going to try things. Some things are going to work and some things aren't.
Hybrid work is a fascinating subject. It fascinates me from the perspective of where we are as a business, but also, I mean, I have a point of view on this. I've been working remotely for the last 30 years. So I come into this with a kind of a point of view, and that is that I'm capable of being left out in the wild and getting my work done and getting my work done effectively. Now, having said that, I recognize the Jamie Dimons of the world are saying, you folks need to come back. And you need to come back because we have a culture here that you need to absorb. You need to come back because we need these moments of spark and innovation that happen when you're all in a room together, not when you're sitting behind a desk like you and I are.
I think the CEOs that are saying everybody's going back to work are not taking the right path. I think it might work for some organizations, but when you've given people these 2.5 years to work remotely, and many of them have found that it works very well, if not better, than being in an environment around other people, I think it's going to be mighty difficult to get everybody to go back to an office environment, nor do I think they should have to. And the statistics show that a lot of people have been more productive, not in an office environment, but on their own getting their work done. The problem we've dealt with is an age issue, in that a lot of people over 40 think you have to be in front of somebody to be accomplishing something, and they have to monitor your work. And I don't think that's true anymore.
We're going to figure out what things are best done in person. Initially, people were like, well, collaboration needs to be in person, and that's not necessarily true. Now I see some of the organizations are saying innovation is best done in person. And I don't know if that's true because people have a hard time measuring innovation. So I would say we're at the midpoint of a lengthy journey, but there will be new work modalities forevermore because we've proven that remote work for more than people assumed, a larger number of roles can work remotely effectively for long periods of time.
By the way, the reason we answer emails during a meeting is because somebody has been looking for us and is, looking for an answer very quickly, right? That's why. Look at presence in all of these tools. If I'm set to busy, you think anybody cares, right? No, nobody cares. They're going to meet anyways. And then you feel compelled that you have to respond. But I'm in a meeting. Yeah, but you're in a meeting remotely. Come on, you can answer, and yet you can't, or you shouldn't, because you should be engaged with the people you're talking to.
Collaboration, whether it's done at home or in the office, it almost doesn't really matter. Better workplace engagement, better employee engagement. Those are the real goals they're trying to achieve. And if some countries are able to achieve that in the office, and some countries are able to achieve that out of the office, and other places are able to achieve it through a hybrid experience, great, right? As long as the similar goals are being achieved.
But we do definitely run the risk of divides and chasms. And the other thing too that we also can't forget is we already have a fractured infrastructure related to access to technology, bandwidth, internet, data speeds. What do you have access to in your area of the world, or even your part of the country, right? Because these mechanisms ride on the expectation of having some infrastructure, maybe that itself puts the person at risk for not being able to be a heavy or a fast adopter.
I think that the community at large has discovered a new way of doing things. And that new way of doing things, although challenging, has many great benefits. And those benefits are often outside of work. So they're the things like the ability to look after, raise, and deal with the typical family issues that come up in a way that actually is balanced with work. And the two things can interweave themselves much, much more effectively.
The idea should be that companies need to identify their culture. They need to identify how they work best within their own employee organization, how they share ideas, how they collaborate, how they meet, and how they want to support their meetings, and then center their conversation around how they specifically do things. I think we're starting to see organizations get a lot closer to understanding who they are and what they want to be and the culture that they want to support and really drive towards that. So Is the future hybrid meetings? Yes. Is it flexible meetings? Yes. Is it, is the differences generational or somewhat emotional? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that it is the same for everybody. I think it's, every organization is going to be quite a bit different and is going to have a different conversation in that regard.
On the hybrid front, I'm really excited that the conversations I'm having now with customers and organizations is not, can we do hybrid? Like, is it possible? What do we need from a technology standpoint? And much more, we're doing hybrid. That's the reality. How do we make people productive and efficient? How do we give people a really good experience? How do we deal with management now? How do we deal with objectives, culture, pulling the organization in the same direction? So lots and lots of conversations about optimizing the reality that is hybrid.
There's a big percentage of people that meet their future partners in the office. There's a big percentage of people that get trained one-on-one. They can't really do it virtually. So I think that we can never write off the fact that we can't be back in the office. I think that once you're humming, or once you've got, depending on your role, once you're humming, once you understand what you need to do, I think you can be productive and you can function outside of the office. But I think there's a number of things, social being one of those, that you really need to be back in the office.
In our research, we continue to see that hybrid work is really more the norm than the exception. While a lot of companies have initiated programs to bring employees back to the office, it's not necessarily on a full-time basis, and there's still an awful lot of employees that will continue to work from home, at least part-time, if not full-time. So I feel like the age of hybrid work has endured, and that's something that we'll continue to see going forward. Our data has shown that the bigger challenge that companies have now as they move toward that or are in that hybrid work environment is making sure that employees feel engaged no matter where they're working.
Challenge of hybrid work is real today. I personally have mixed emotions, and Yorktel itself is going through a lot of dialogue right now, trying to determine what is the right thing to do for the company, what is the right thing to do for the employee. The reality is, I think both are losing in this environment. I think the autonomy of the employee of being able to have more flexibility in their work schedule is a positive thing. I think for companies, we're losing a little bit of that intellectual property of the cooler chats. I think for the newer workers coming into the workplace and people in the workplace for the last 3 to 5 years, I think they're losing an ability for mentorship. I think that's a big driver. And if you're not mentoring and you're not becoming part of the culture, then I think some of the company is losing from that ability to retain employees and grow employees. So it's a struggle. It's a real struggle on that.
One thing that we have learned this year is that hybrid cannot be simply defined as a location-based decision. So a blanket policy of 3 days in, 2 days out, or 2 days in, 3 days out will simply not work. Instead, hybrid work should be intentional. It should be employee-centric, and it should be aligned with the company culture.
So hybrid work is going to be here to stay. Everybody's tried to create during the pandemic how they want to work, when they want to work, and where they want to work. And companies are going to have to learn to accommodate this new generation, this new modern worker in the styles in which they wish to communicate and not the styles that the companies normally used to support. And maybe we go one more step further. I don't know about hybrid, because hybrid kind of sends, well, maybe I'm mandated to do things a certain day. I'm thinking it's going to be more flexible work. People are going to be able to choose the days they want to work in a focused way. And then they're going to choose the way, hey, tomorrow's a really great collaboration day, and the support and the technology at that other place, let's just call it the office, supports collaboration better. So hybrid's here to stay. Let's just make sure they call it flexible.
That's it for this week's 2023 Wrap Podcast.
Join us next week when our topic will be designing the future-ready office.